How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Boylei Hobby Time. About 6 months ago, a friend of mine, Stutson from Stutson Studio, recommended a movie to me, and I only just got around to watching it about 2 weeks ago, and boy was I missing out. The movie is called RRR, and I loved it. The story is great. It's chock full of incredible moments and crazy action sequences that really captured my attention. One shot in particular looked like it would be the perfect fit for a diorama. So that's what I'm going to be attempting to build in this video. And just as a disclaimer, the movie is a little bit violent, so I wouldn't recommend it for kids. I had fun putting together this truck that I found at the hobby store, but the keen viewer may have noticed that the truck I'm using is German and from almost a decade after the movie is supposed to take place. It was the closest thing I could find. I looked for the truck that is in the movie, but I couldn't find it anywhere. If you're familiar with that particular truck and you know where I could find it in 1:35 scale, feel free to let me know in the comments so that next time around, I can make the scene more believable. After putting the rest of the truck together, I extended the bed of the truck just a bit in order to accommodate a slightly larger cage. In this scene, a bunch of animals and Bheem, one of the main characters, explode from some hidden cages on the back of the truck like a Noah's Ark confetti cannon, and I needed just a little extra space to make sure all the animals would fit. After the truck was all done, it was time to build the cage itself. Technically, it's supposed to be multiple cages, not just one cage, but I decided to make a 3-celled cage to save myself a little time. But it didn't save me much time. I made the frame of the cage out of square styrene tubes. I made 2 identical frame pieces, one for the top and one for the bottom. I penciled on some measurements, and then off camera, I drilled millions of little holes to mount the bars of the cage. I then threaded the round styrene rods through the holes and suspended the upper frame piece about 1.5 inches high at each of the corners before filling in all of the remaining holes with more bars made of styrene. Styrene is a great material. I would highly recommend learning how to use it if you ever get into the hobby. I topped off the cage with a diamond-plated styrene sheet, and I added some diagonal crossbars around the outside before gluing the cage to the bed of the truck. I'm not quite done with the truck yet, but I decided to set it aside for the time being because I had just finished printing the whole Jungle Book on my 3D printer. I bought all these beautiful animal STLs from Animal Den Miniatures on my mini factory. I'll put a link in the corner as well as down below. I also recreated my boy Bheem, the hero of the shot, using Hero Forge and printed him off as well. After that, I took all the minis outside to prime. I then grabbed my airbrush and began layering on the paints, starting with dark and working up to light. I started with the base coats of each animal, applying all of the colors that were shared by different animals before switching colors in the airbrush. I did this in batches and allowed me to save a lot of time while painting all 17 of these animals. Once all the base coats were on, I switched over to a brush to add the details. I painted on the noses and the eyes and all the other details, and the most fun for me was painting on the leopard spots and the tiger stripes. These are 2 things that I had actually never painted before. When it was all said and done, it looked like I had brought home one of those tubes of animals that you'd find at Hobby Lobby or the dollar store. After the animals were done, it was time to paint Bheem. Bheem is one of the coolest dudes around. Not only does he have the most unbelievable strength, endurance, and that jungle grind set, but he's also an excellent dancer. His friend Raju is equally as impressive, and their friendship is truly incredible and something to be desired. In addition to asking your significant other to be your Valentine this year, reach out to your best friend and ask them to be your Bheem, or your Raju. If they haven't seen the movie, they probably won't understand what you're saying, but if they have seen it, it'll probably mean a lot to them. After the painting was done, it was time to finish the truck. I did genuinely enjoy making the bottom 3 cages by hand, but it took up way too much of my allotted weekly building time, so I decided to opt for another option for the other cages. I don't always use a 3D printer for this kind of thing, but when I do, it's kind of like having a little elf who can build stuff on the side while I'm doing other more important things. It's pretty great. Once the cages were all glued together, it was time to work on the base. I used an off-cut sheet of acrylic and some wooden strips to make a base where I could hide the battery pack. I created a path for the wires to get from the battery housing to Bheem, and this included drilling some holes through the truck as well as in the base. I installed a little toggle switch and I gave Bheem some LED torches that I stole from some electric tea light candles. After I had pulled the wire through the base and through the truck, I stuck the truck down to the base, I masked off the wire and the switch, and I took it outside and I primed it. I then broke out the airbrush again and attempted to match the colors on the truck that I saw in the movie. For the cab, this meant a grayish green and lots of earth tones to get a nice rusty steel look for all of the cages. I finished the paint job on the truck with a coat of dust. After that, I put the windows back in place and I gave them a coat of dust as well. After the windshield, I painted the base. The location of the scene is at some kind of a big palace where there's a big red carpet on the ground that sits underneath the truck as the animals and Bheem are flying through the air. I layered up all the warm colors I needed till I got the carpet color I was looking for, and I painted some dirt onto the sides as well as behind the truck where the carpet had been pulled up as the truck did its epic side stop. I wanted to have some grass on the sides, so I threw on some static tack, broke out the grass applicator, and I glued the static grass in place. Static grass is like sand. It gets everywhere. I made sure to save all the leftover grass using the classic vacuum cleaner sock combo. I tinted some of the grass a slightly deeper green color and then I added some mud effects behind the truck. At this point I was pretty happy with where the base was, so I tidied up and got ready for final assembly. I connected Bheem to his power source and I glued him in place. To create the flame effect, I manipulated some hot glue into a flame-like shape around both of the LEDs and I tinted them with a little fiery color off camera. After that, I glued all the animals in place. The last thing to do was to paint the sides of the diorama black, and after that, I called it good. That is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Huge shout out as always to my patrons. You guys are the best. Have an awesome week, everyone. I'll see you next time.